How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another First Descendant video. In this video, I want to talk to you guys about how to mod your characters effectively and in a smart way. I've watched quite a few creators make some videos very similar to this within the last 24 hours, and in a lot of cases their information is either completely wrong or just giving you not really the whole story. So in this video, I'm gonna set the record straight and give you the best information so that you can mod more effectively. Now, if you're interested in staying up to date with the First Descendant, I live stream this game every single day in the beta and gonna live stream it once the game come out. So come over and join me on the stream if you want to stay up to date. And without wasting too much time, let's dive on in. Alright, so jumping into the Descendants, there are a few things you should really know about them, and how they scale is going to be dependent on the individual Descendant. And not to go into it too depth, but each individual Descendant is going to have a different damage type that they do. For example, my Void Charge does tech, my Expulsion does tech, my Hypercube does dimension, and my Orbit Blitz does dimension damage. Going over to Sharon, she does dimension and electricity, dimension and electricity, electric and fusion, so on and so forth. Each individual Descendant have their own different damage that they can scale off of, and you should be aware of that when you're trying to scale them. Now, with that in mind, one thing you need to note is not every Descendant is the same. Some like Glay is probably going to scale a little bit more with weapon damage, as to where someone like Bunny is going to be more of a skill based character, so you're going to scale her ideally with skill damage. Now, I'm going to jump in with Ajax since he's my more advanced character. I'm going to clear him out and show you how I would ideally build him, and this usually goes for a lot of the Descendants, so you can have an idea of how to build a Descendant in a smart way. Now, we're on the mod screen with my Ajax, and the first thing you should always do whenever you're about to mod your character, I took all my mods out, is click view modules for current Descendant only. Now, this is important because it's going to show you the things that's going to be specific for this one, this individual Descendant, and you don't want to really see the other nonsense that doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. Now, the first thing I want to talk about are the modules, and these two specifically, the skill module and the sub module. And the sub module is one that gets a lot of wrong information. It's just completely wrong how people talk about it, so I'm gonna set the record straight on this first. Now, one thing that a lot of creators say is this module costs nothing whenever you put a weapon into this. Now, while that is true, it doesn't cost you anything. One thing they're missing is because in a lot of cases they just straight up don't put anything beyond the first level 1, and they miss a really important thing. Is whenever you put something in here that is beyond the level 0, so let's say we have the I believe I have the spiked hand one, dual claws, that you can see is level 3. I gain 3 additional module capacity in the top right. And just to put it in perspective, whenever I have a full-fledged shocking punch in, I get an additional 10 to my mod capacity. Now, this is important because first off, a lot of them just straight up say that this only gives you it's a free thing. No, this is very big and very important to your build because it gives you 10 additional mod capacity, and that can be in a whole entire additional mod very easy whenever you slot it into the proper slots. So just make sure you understand and you put this in and level this up as soon as possible, because this is going to just greatly increase your mod capacity. Again, you guys really should try to get the right information. I know it's a little bit hard. There's a lot of good creators and some that just don't kind of know what they're talking about. So yeah, just be a little bit wary. But yeah, this is a very big one that a lot miss, and you should really be informed about it. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the skill module, and this is another one that is completely wrong in a lot of cases, and a lot of creators completely miss. And one thing you need to know about the skill module is they will modify the way a skill works in your kit depending on which one you put in. A good way to find them is they're typically transcendent. I'm not sure if all of them are, but I tend to see that they are transcendent, so keep that in mind. Now, the way that I've noticed the skill mod scale is whenever you level them up, the cost is actually reduced as to opposed increase compared to other mods. So for example, if we have strong mentality, as you can see at its base level, it is +2, and then as I upgraded this one, it is +7 cost. So it goes up whenever it's these qualities, but whenever it's a skill module, for example, it actually goes down. So it's important that you level these up because one, they're going to give you increased damage, but most importantly, or not necessarily increased damage, it depends on what the mod is. But for example, this one is going to give me increased damage and it's going to scale proportionally to my defense. Another thing is it's going to just reduce the cost whenever you put it into your skill module, because as you level it up, it just costs less, and it's going to be a little bit more cost cost effective. So right now, as you can see, nearly 2 fully leveled items only cost you 7, and you have 73 entire more mod capacity for your other things. These two things are very much like not completely explained well, and I really want you guys to understand that these two are very important to your setup, and you should max these out as soon as possible without like compromising your other skills. Now the next thing we need to talk about is what you should put into these individual slots, and again, this is going to vary depending on the descendant you have, what type of playstyle it has, if it's more weapon focused or if it's more skilled focused. But let's say hypothetically you're playing Ajax, I'm going to show you how I build. Make sure you note that these plus signs mean these are neutral, so when no matter what you put in here, they will cost a set cost. So let's say for example this one right here, if we put, let's swap to the right one. So let's say for example we put stem accelerant in, that costs 2. I don't know if this is going to reduce it. Yeah, it reduced it to 1. And let's say for example I put the same one into this slot, which is a little bit different, it's going to cost more, so it costs 3. It's important to note that you need to put these in really like good spots. There's a few things that can like modify this to make it so you can change the slot. So let me save it. And you can use these crystallization catalysts. I do a full video breaking like how to mod this, like do these things properly in the video on screen in the time card. But this is going to be the way you add these and or change or replace these, because sometimes you just actually don't need these for the build. With that in mind, there are a few things that I think are staples. First off, we want to talk about resistances when it comes to the character, and they're typically called antibodies. I can't spell. And these antibodies typically give you resistances to certain type of whatever bosses or enemies you're fighting. Typically, I only use these whenever I'm fighting against bosses that have very specific like damage type. So for example, if I'm fighting against a cold boss, I'm going to put this one in and gives me some chill resistance just to make sure that is okay. For me, whenever it comes to like a boss build, I've tried to reserve at least one for that like damage type, so it's a little bit easier to sustain. Now you don't have to, you can be more careful, but for me, I want to always have one slot for resistances. Now contingent upon how you're going to build, for example, whenever I play Ajax, I like to have my shields be very good. So one thing I want is duration. So typically skill extension will be the one that gives you more skill duration. I would slot this one in personally, but you can kind of tailor it to what you want to do. You can get maybe this one, skill duration support or defense acceleration. That's going to be up to you. Defense acceleration is also pretty good as well, because skill duration is good for his first and his fourth ability and all his ability skills off of defense, so this could be another great option. Now again, depending if you're trying to build a little bit more offensive or defensive, the next thing I would type in is crit on the right side here, and there are a few things that can increase your like crit damage on your abilities, and that's what I ideally would look for. So for example, this one, skill crit hit damage plus skill effect range, is really good because you really want range on yourself anyway, so this is a really good one to put in if you have it. And while we're on the subject of range is also a really great one. Skill expansion is great because it'll increase the range of certain skills, and it's not going to be for every single skill. You're going to have to test it yourself because it doesn't specify. But for Ajax, for example, this will make his forward shield better. It'll make his AoE shield like radius bigger, and it'll make all his attacks do more like area damage so that you can hit things a little bit more. Very great skill you should almost always put when you're playing Ajax, in my opinion, alongside the duration. Now, one other thing I really like to add is cost reduction, because cost reduction is going to make it a little bit more easier for you to sustain, and that's why I use strong mentality whenever I'm doing anything. Almost all characters probably want this, not everyone, but a good portion of like any caster probably want this, that use their skills a lot. Like Glade probably won't use it as much unless she's like really focused on ultimate, but for like Ajax, in my opinion, you should almost always have this one as well, and this one is just going to make it so you have less cost on things. The next thing we really want to focus on is cooldown, and this is usually again usable for most descendants, not all of them, because some of them just have static abilities that doesn't require a like cooldown. But again, for Ajax, nimble fingers will be great because it gives you again the ability to reduce the cooldown on your abilities. And yeah, you kind of really want to have this on there for the cooldown and the damage uptime and your skill uptimes, because my Ajax currently can keep his bubble shield up near permanently as long as he has this slotted in and as long as he has power, which we solve with the strong mentality. Now, one thing specifically when it comes to Ajax is he is a descendant that scales off of defense. All his abilities scales off of defense, and I'll show you outside of the menu here. So you can see when we come to orbit barrier, it says the barrier stats are based off of Ajax's HP and defense. Over here, we put the thing in his void charge that made it so that it scaled off his defense, that one skill one. So defense will scale this, but the damage increase is proportional to Ajax's defense, giving stun to the enemy in range. Your hypercube, again, another instance of HP and defense being something that his skills scale off of. So with that in mind, it's really important that in your extra slots, if you have them, you should probably consider putting some defensive things in. So for example, increased defense is another really good one. What I like to use is shield conversion as well, because I don't really care for shields. I typically have another set of slots, so I'll put that in. Here is another example of a really good one that you can use, defense accelerant. I don't know if I would use this many, maybe 2 of these, but this one is another great option. Skill duration plus defense, 2 things you absolutely want on Ajax. And then generally another great option will be health, because HP keeps you alive and staying alive is good. Increased HP can work really well. Skill duration support works really well because it gives you HP. I think we talked about this earlier. Range HP calculator is another one because you want skill range plus HP to scale your abilities. There's like a lot of things that you can really use to get a lot of benefit from your character if you just know how to build them. Now in the future, whenever the game fully releases or whatever the case is, I can maybe show you guys how to build some of these characters so that you can have a great baseline. Just keep in mind, not every character is going to be perfect for this. Like for example, this Ajax may not be the best for like fighting against the bosses, but whenever you're farming with him, this will be an amazing Ajax, as he'll have really high uptime on his like slam and his AoEs, and then you'll be able to protect your allies fairly well. Now again, I don't want to make this too long of a video because to be honest, this doesn't need to be that long, but if you have any questions about the First Descendant, no matter what the character is, I'll do my best to answer it down in the comments, so leave them down below. Again, I live stream the First Descendant every single day at noon Central Time, so come check me out over on Twitch. And with that said, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video very soon. Later.